Awesome. We are live. Welcome, guys. Welcome, Trade Pros. This is Mark coming at you guys from Trade Pro Academy headquarters here in Toronto, Ontario on this lovely sunny day for our Monday, May 6th, 2019. Great update coming your way, guys. Let's get started here. So generally what we look at is any of the news, any of the economic releases that are scheduled for the remainder of the session. However, we don't see anything really scheduled for that remainder of the session, but what we do have is a quick talking point, which is just going to quickly review over what George said in the morning update with regards to Mr. Trump's tweets over the weekend as far as raising potential tariffs on China, stoking the US-China trade war bear, and it's not looking too good on that front since the markets have been pretty optimistic over the last couple of weeks as far as trade deals going well. But this tweet basically was proof in the pudding. The trade war impasse is on. And based on the tweets we're seeing as well today, we saw a tweet coming out from Mr. Trump that the US has been losing for many years, $600 to $800 billion a year on trade with China. We lose $500 billion. Sorry, we're not going to be doing that anymore. So stoking a little bit of fear in the market here as well. There was some news that China is kind of backtracking on some of its commitments, which is the reason behind these tweets. So that's definitely the driver in the markets this morning, this week so far. Like I said, not too much in terms of scheduled news. So your squawk is your best bet as far as headline risk. And that's what we've got to keep an eye on going forward. So make sure you guys have a squawk. If not, make sure you join the Trade Pro Academy room where we can get you on a discounted rate for those squawks. Anything else? Let's see, US session, nothing really. We had Fed's Harker, who is a non-voting hawk. He mentioned that he still sees one hike in 2019 and one in 2020, sees one rate hike at most this year, which is great, but he's a non-voter, so it doesn't really matter what he says. And we also had a little squawk coming out from Warren Buffett, who did an interview on CNBC mentioning cheap money, full employment, and low inflation looks like nirvana. Didn't think this could be a stable situation for a long time. I still don't, but so far I'm wrong. So Warren Buffett's coming on and saying that it's cheap at the moment. There was also a tweet somewhere that he was mentioning that stocks are super cheap at this level. So again, trying to stoke the bulls, but traders are smarter, and they're pricing in this China-US trade war impasse here. So that's what we're seeing. That's why the SPOs are down so far this morning, and that is basically it. So that's what keep your ears open for the remainder of the session. Let me jump onto my charts here where we can take a quick peek at where we're at with regards to crude oil and SPOs. Some key levels, and then we'll jump into our performance index, show you guys how our trade pros did in the room this morning. So you've got the quote board up here. Up top, you got your CL, that's your crude oil contracts. So far, we've got around 546,000 contracts traded. Daily change percentage is down minus 0.42%. So this comes on the back of a gap lower on Sunday. I'll show you guys that on the pivot charts, but basically had gaps across the board. Crude oil had a gap, SPOs had a gap. A lot of the equity index futures had gaps on the Sunday open, and most of them have been filled into this part of the session. So let's take a quick peek at that. So here we have crude, 547,000 contracts, just about a little bit more than average. On average, we've been seeing 450 to 5, so around 550 is a little bit higher than average. And again, daily change percentage down 0.37%. SPOs, you've got 1.3 million contracts traded thus far. This is a lot more than average. On average, we've been seeing around 600,000 to 700,000 for this time of day. We've got almost double that so far. So a lot of volatility in the SPOs this morning. And again, this is on the back of those Trump tweets with regards to the China-US trade war. We are down minus 1.11%. from previous day's close, and that was previous day close was at 29.49.5, and we're currently trading at the 29.16 3/4. So down quite significantly from Friday's close. And again, that was as a result of the gap down over the weekend. We have given back some of those gains, filled that gap, but there's still some ways to go up until the previous day close. So that's what we got on the quote board. Let's switch over to our pivot charts, have a quick peek at where we're at. So you can see here on Friday's closed around 61.90 on crude, opened up around the 61.30s. Nice sell-off down into the $60 level. Found some support there on your S3. Nice little fade back to the pivot, which is where we're at right now. And this is also a gap fill. So you can see this gap has been filled by this part of the session here. And so generally what will happen is if you've got a bearish structure coming in and then we get the gap, the market will often fill the gap and then fade back down. So watching for something similar to happen here. Previous day close is your resistance. Pivot's also your resistance, so 61.89, 61.90. We've seen 1, 2, 3 rotations into it. Just keep in mind, guys, these are 1 hour bars, so each bar is 1 hour's worth of price action. So we've seen 1, 2, 3. And this third bar is just forming here. We're 8 minutes into the hour, but you can see for 2 hours, we've held that pivot as a resistance, 61.89. And it's looking like it's holding for the moment. So looking for a press back down to the S1, 61.26, and potentially back down below the 61 level into those S2, 60.80s. That's what we'll be watching for there. If we do end up holding a move down into the S1, you can see us kind of start to consolidate, look for another press back up into the pivot. If we can get back up over the pivot or above that 62 round number, I can see us pressing into those overnight highs here. So these aren't your overnight highs. This was your, looks like the high from the previous session here. This was just before the gap. So around the 62.50 marker, if we can get back above that pivot. So that's what we'll be watching for on crude. As far as these SPUs are concerned, you can see again, Friday rotated off of that 2900, kind of climbed up back into those previous highs, and we just gapped down on this open here. So opened around the 29, what level is this? Around where we're at now, 29.17.5. That was the open, and kind of sold off a bit, found some bottoming. Now we've pressed back above the S2, pressing into S1. And again, looking for this thing to fill the gap. You can see we've just came into the gap, but we still have ways to go to fill it. That's around 29.50. And so we'll see how price action holds now. Ideally, we stay above the S2. Any rotations down into 29.10, we'd like to see those getting absorbed for potential press higher. So this is a key level here because we have started to fill the gap. This is where your faders often come in. So we'll see what the faders do. If they can press it back down to S2, but we start seeing buyers stepping in around there, start forming some support, then we can look to pick it up long. However, if these faders come in, press it back below S2, I could see them trying to press it back below previous lows here around the 28.80s. So that's what we're watching for as far as the SPUs pivot charts are concerned. Let's open up our 10-tick chart here. Have a quick peek at some of our crude oil levels. So you'll see we were in a pretty bearish trend coming into this open here. This was our previous close, and that was the gap. So you can see after this gap down, kind of started forming, we had this rotation up into the gap, rotated lower into the 61s. That level held. We are starting to press higher now. This is the previous day close, so I'm expecting to see a battle here, which is exactly what we're getting. You can see it's 1 rotation, 2 rotations, 3 rotations battling up at this zone. Oh, looks like I'm not in the current session. There we go. So now that I've fast forwarded to our current session here, you will see that we are seeing some resistance coming in right around that previous day close. So we got 1 rotation there, another rotation here, another one there, another one there. So this thing is slowly looking like it's starting to fail. I'd like to see another move up into here, see this thing kind of fizzle out for the sellers to step on it back into those 61.45, 61.50s. and we'll see where it goes from there. We are currently above our pit open, which was around the 61.30s. So a little bit of a sell-off to start the session, come back up. Now we are forming what looks to be a potential, what's this, 1, 2, 3. If we get another rotation into here, this will be a quadruple top, and we can press lower there. What you are seeing right now, though, is we are kind of forming like a little bit of a wedge here. So we're rotating within this level, and I kind of want to see this level hold here. If we can see this hold, we can get a press back down and potentially press this thing lower. So I'm looking for a press lower before the move higher. So at the moment, you've got stops sitting above these. So if I'm looking for that press down into there, if these guys take out those lows, come back into that range and then press higher, see us making a run for those stops up top. But for now, I feel like we have made quite a nice recovery overnight. So I think the buying might be a little bit tired, and it's time to release some buy stops before the next push higher. So that's what we're watching for on crude oil. On the SP 500, kind of a similar story here. Like you can see, we had this gap from Friday's close. So Friday we closed right up in this zone, nice big gap, opened back down around the 29.13-ish level. And so you can see this was a pretty big gap between here and here. So a lot of space to cover. What you have seen though, pretty big sell-off. These sellers starting to get absorbed. This was a potential higher low. Once we cracked above that previous market structure high, that kind of gave us the idea that market trend, or rather market structure, might be shifting. So you see lower lows, lower highs. This was really your first break of a previous lower high. That gave you a higher high. And what we look for after this kind of price action where you get a move down, that gives you a potential higher low. That gets confirmed once you get that breakout. Once that happens, you simply look for a rotation back into that point of origin. And we kind of got two rotations there, and she ripped higher. So market structure is currently looking a bit bullish, but overall we are in a bearish structure. So microstructure is bullish, but macro structure is bearish. And what does that mean? Basically, you're bullish short term, but bearish longer term. And what you would look for in this kind of a case is a nice rotation higher. And this is kind of what we're looking for back within that gap fill. We're in this area here. You can see some nice buying right off the open, really strong bid off the open. Now we've come up into this zone here between these, let's call it 22s and 24s. You can see one rotation, two rotation, three rotation. This is kind of a double top pattern here. You can see this lower high failed to breach that previous high, and we're catching a rotation lower. So this is a level that I am watching for support in this market, 29.15s to the 16s. We've got our US session VWAP up here, and we've got some buying interest sitting right around these levels as well. You can also see big high volume node here on the 5-day volume profile. So should be some support in this level. This is really the line in the sand for the bulls in my eyes. If we come back into here, start to etch out some support, you can look to pick this thing up for another ride to fill into the previous day low up into these 30s and potentially back up into your previous day close right around that 49.5. So those are some of the targets. If we do get back below this level here in these 15s, I can see us cracking that VWAP and rotating back up into it for another press lower. Your next support will be your Globex VWAP, and below that you're open right around this 2900 level. So if we do get back below the 15s, I'm looking for a spill down into the open, and then we will we'll gauge the market from there. But really for the remainder of the session, your key levels as support, your 29.15s, as resistance, your 29.23s, 24s, and targets above that 29.30s, below that 2900 even. So that's basically all that we've got for both of these markets. And finally, let's jump into our TRADEPRO Performance Index. So let me drag this guy into screen here for you guys to see. And Today's session, May 6th, we had 53% of the room was up, 9% was flat, 37.5 were down, giving us a total of 62.5% green in the room. So another great result for us in the room today. So far in May, we are green, and we're looking to continue that trend going into the end of May. A couple of days left to go, but trend's looking good to start the month off. So that's what we've got for you guys for today. If you guys are enjoying these updates, please make sure to show us some love, whether that's via likes, via comments, via shares, or via subscriptions. Make sure you guys subscribe if you want to keep up to date with all of our content, all of our uploads. Anytime we go live, make sure to check that notification bell once you do subscribe. So with that, I'm going to be signing off here. If you guys will be trading into the latter end of the session, make sure to follow those 3 rules. Stay patient, stay diligent, and stay disciplined. Until tomorrow, take care, good luck, and good trading. Ciao, guys.